All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Did we get a chance to look at the minutes from previous meeting? Any questions?
Nope, all motion approval.
Second.
We got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Financial report in there, any questions?
There's a number of pages you've got in there, kind of a year-end wrap-up a little bit, so it's a little bit more extensive than sometimes the information that's included. A couple things I just wanted to highlight here. And I will be kind of handling Ian's brief today because he is on vacation, so let's see here. If you go to,
Do we know if CADIC is up to date?
they are, yeah, they did make a payment. So
Okay, perfect.
you can actually see that on, that was one of the ones I was gonna highlight here. Let's see, that'd be the page 2 of 3, and it's actually like the third or fourth, it's the fourth financial page. You can see that they made a loan in December, or a payment in December, so, anyway. The first page there is you've got operating expenses for the year and then income, and you can see our operating expenses last year were $114,606.91, and income was $12,276.68. So we did actually have more income than budgeted, and we had more expenditure. So we did exceed our income slightly. So we did have a slight drawdown in the overall EDA budget itself. A lot of that has to do with the REV program, that line 405. You can see there's $13,417.98 that we didn't have any budget for that at all. And so if you keep in mind, you think of we had gotten that grant, so basically that's a drawdown of funds that were intended to be drawn down.
Yeah.
So if you take that out, if you back that out, we were actually kind of ahead by about $10,000 this year. So not a bad year on the EDA. The other thing I wanted to highlight in the EDA revolving loan fund, so that'd be the flip page from that, so I was talking about Fund 290, the next page is 226. That's the EDA's revolving loan fund. So you see we did transfer in $82,577.24, and that's a transfer, after consultation with the council and with staff, we decided to close that downtown TIF this year, so that was money that some of the members had been on for a little while, was owed to the EDA from the downtown TIF for a building that was torn down, burned, or torn down. I don't know how long ago was that, Dan? 20 years ago?
Probably 20, 25 years ago, yeah.
So early 2000s, and it had been hanging onto a negative balance because obviously we hadn't had any, those are a couple lots we own downtown still. So anyway, decided to close that this year, so we did transfer in some money from the general fund to close that. The nice thing is that is a plus to the EDA's revolving loan fund then.
Yeah.
So we now have some additional funds that would be loanable. I think those are the highlights I've got for the finance.
And then there's hopes for downtown then, because now that's closed.
Yeah, and now if somebody were to develop there, we would be able to offer them a new TIF benefit if that was something that was decided by the council. The other thing I will say on Fund 226, so that Whitmarsh was closed this year, that'll be the last time we'll have that on there, that's been satisfied, so we'll, on the next packet, that'll be eliminated. That's all I've got on the finances, though. Any questions?
Yeah, so we have basically an existing balance of about $88,000 we can lend out, am I reading that correctly? Or no, that's just how much was transferred in, how much?
We transferred in about $82,000.
Yeah, 82.
To close that TIF.
Yeah, and then it said interest earned was the 5518, which gets
Sure.
us to the 88,095, but, yeah, how much do we have available on our?
No, I don't have that number right in front of me, I think it's probably about $150,000 with that transfer. I know that earlier this year when we were discussing loans, we weren't comfortable going over 50, so I would guess that we're in that 150 range now with that transfer in.
Yeah, we were, we had a little more than 50, I think, because we, I think it was like 75 or something.
Yeah, that's why I said, I think it's a little over 150 now if you take the 82 plus what was already on the books.
So, okay.
Next will be the coordinator's report.
Sure, and you've got a copy of Ian's report there. He's got a couple of things highlighting. One is to talk about data centers a little bit today. There's a session coming up in Austin on, I think it's next Wednesday, so I'll be attending down there to get a little bit more information. But we have had people talking about that a lot in this area. Familiar with Cannon Falls has approved a data center. Pine Island is in the process.
They approved the development.
Sure.
Plan, so.
I think there's still some lawsuits pending, things like that.
Yeah.
But anyways, I know that there has been some interest in our area as well because of location and things like that. So we'll talk about that a little bit there. The other thing is then we want to talk a little bit about the the priorities for 2026. We always try to set the goal. So, you know, as he mentions there, if there's any new ideas or suggestions for the EDA board, I think what we're looking for is if there's a tangible goal. Sometimes in the past, we've kind of had general goals like, oh, support business. Well, I mean, that's a great goal. I mean, it's not a bad thing. We try to always do that. But if there's for example, if there's specific business that we think we should go after, you know, is there a franchise we should try and incentivize, or if there's a type of business, you know, subset of business that we want to try to actually recruit specifically. I think that's kind of what Ian's looking for, if there's any direct, you know, specifics. Otherwise, as I said, he's got his pillars of his work plan for this year. You can kind of see what his strategic pillars are: business growth and expansion, and some targets there, workforce and housing. We do think that we're kind of shifting out of the housing focus now, maybe a little on workforce still, but with transportation and things. But we have a lot of residential development slated for this year. Anybody who's been up in the Northwest has seen, you know, the Oscar Meadows first phase is already filling in. So even though it's been pretty cold, they still continue to build out there, and Mr. Schramm's development there as well. I think he's got 3 or 4 eightplexes started now, and 2 of them are all the way with roofs on them already.
Oscar's second, he's planted.
Oscar second is slated to come to council for approval in January.
Yeah, I was just talking to Tony about that.
The second phase, which is another 40 single family, and then, you know, anybody who goes up to school, you can see that apartment complex up there has been making some good steady progress too. So I think they're looking at June or July of '26 at possibly being open, so, which is good. And the Schrader subdivision was approved on the south side as well. So south of the Windsor Court, west of Highway 57 there, and that's slated for 82, I think, 82 modular homes, or, you know, slab on grade property homes. So, I mean, and I don't know if that one's going to come in kind of in spots. I think it's going to come in, some areas will come in faster than others, because obviously people will select the lots they want. But I think he's planning on having it all constructed by fall of next year. So we may not see that one really fill in until '27. But so a lot of the residential development has been pretty strong, and if interest rates continue to come down a little bit, we expect to see that continue to have some interest there. I mean, one thing to take in mind would be on the far northeast, we've seen Common Acres. You know, didn't expect to see it fill in quite that quickly myself, because those are a little bit more expensive. But that one, I think he got 5 or 6 lots, and some of those are ones that I think Mr. Bigelow's family owns, that they might have been considering building themselves, but they may sell those if somebody's interested in it. So, I mean, there's a little bit of give and take there. And there's a map in here, too, with that development land. So you can kind of see the current. I know there's a couple ones I have for him to add on here, too. But anyway, so workforce housing, that's maybe something that's sort of to the back burner a little bit more. Infrastructure, we're going to continue to work on that. This year, we're completing the water tower project on the south side. So that has an extra 250,000 gallons of water in that tower, which will support both residential and you know, industrial growth. The city is also in the middle of purchase of People's Service Co-op territory on the south side. So currently, that South Fork subdivision is served by the People's Electric Co-op. So the city's acquiring that service territory, so those will become City of Casson utility customers. So that's a big expansion. That's about 350 customers right there that will be purchasing the next 3 months or so. So yeah, a lot of utility infrastructure, and then still finishing up the Southwest project. And the city's gone out for a grant to complete the trail connection under Highway 14 also, so we'll see if we get that. We want to engage with Manorville too. Some of those areas north of the school there have been annexed into Manorville City, and so, you know, seeing kind of what ends up happening there, and some of them may be tied up in some, I don't know if it'll be tied up in a state litigation or whatnot, but I know there was a death there that may slow a few things down directly north there. But I know Tony's planning on building off of the golf course road, I think, starting next year.
Yeah.
I think it's only 26 single family, but it's still something. So we want to figure that out. And the state, you know, the county is still waiting to know if the park project will have preliminary funding also. So they went out for some preliminary funding from the bonding bill if that happens this year. Because obviously if that were to proceed and that becomes a county park with the potential for water features, you know, that maybe changes some of the calculus on development as well. So anyway, infrastructure and then communication engagement. I mean, shoot, we've got KM Telecom who's, you know, expanding and growing here all the time, so we're glad to have them. That takes care of a lot of, I mean, if they'd like to be purchased by the city, I mean, we'd love to run that, you know, fiber optics, you know.
I don't know about that one, but
No,
we'll chat later.
I saw City of Wilmer is gonna start their own fiber optic, and And it's always interesting, you know, usually what happens is they spend a lot of money on it, and then it's getting bought out by somebody like KMTEL or something like that. I know, when I was in Blue Earth Valley, they've grown and they've bought a lot of systems too, and in fact, I think they own Pine Island around in our area already, so, anyway. You can kind of see what he's got for strategic initiatives there, trying to get more word out for people, but other than that, I mean, he's certainly looking for feedback on any specific priorities for next year, so I'd love to have any conversation anybody has on that.
Well, hopefully you were just talking about Main Street, if there was any signs, maybe Ian can reach out to the businesses again and some newer businesses and see if they need signs or some of the older ones.
That, you know, the coffee shop on the end of, you know, West Main Street, you know, that the lumber yard,
Yep.
there's something going on. Who knows exactly when it'll all be done. Same thing with the building that Kratos is in, you know, kind of in flux right now. You know, we're looking at some of those infill projects this year, kind of to see if, so facade improvements, I think that's always a good one to spend some money on.
Because I know, like, on Main Street too, didn't that one place sell out? Now they're called the Sandbox.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about
Yeah.
over on West Main Street.
Yep, you got that.
Or like, I'd love to get the facade off, you know, where Tammy's is, they've got that big wooden,
Yep.
kind of 1970s overhang, and honestly, it's not the most attractive,
Mhm.
it's kind of bulky and stuff, so I may talk to them about that. Obviously, there's a couple owners for the building there, so it would have to be something we'd have
Yeah,
to...
it's the one owner I think is the hard one to work with.
Well, and I mean, it's in the city's right of way.
Yep.
So if we said take it off, if the council was in favor of that, then they'd take it off. I remember when I was in Blue Earth, we did a big Main Street rebuild, and there was a lot of people who had those 1970s wooden overhangs, and they were dated. And we helped them take them off, and we paid for them to put on, you know, like the pull-downs or some, you know, a little bit more...
A little more modern,
style.
yep.
It really brightens it up, you know.
It does.
Brightens it up, and I know that it's nice because you don't have to worry about the snow as much with the big ones, but so that'd be something. Facades is definitely one that we can target. That's what we're looking
Yeah,
at.
because you got a existing business and possible new businesses.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, a couple thoughts. The first one on the housing, I would say, on that housing study we got back, the active adult, had some pretty dramatic numbers, I thought. I think if we were to, tweak it, it seemed like that was probably more demand there, with probably less in the pipeline, than any other category, so I think.
Senior, you mean?
Yeah, like the senior active adult, not independent living, not, you know, but the 55-plus communities,
Right.
because that was, I mean, they were saying they thought we needed, what was it, 300?
Like 500 units over the 10 years.
500 units
yeah.
over 10 years. I
That
mean,
is, that is the one area on housing where we do think there's a gap there, you know, and I know you and I talked very briefly about that a little too, but we do have one lot reserved still out at the Vale subdivision, where we still have a 2.5 acre lot out there that would fit another apartment complex, and it's already dense development, there isn't a lot of issues with that, so, I mean, that is one where we've kind of said that would be an ideal fit. It's already got all the utilities and infrastructure, and it's screened well, because you've got apartments on both sides. The state did award the First Homes, a partial grant for those townhomes, that's kind of in that northeast residual lot there. Excuse me, I think they were building eight townhomes, and they got funding for 4 of them.
Oh, good.
The ones the 2 that were disabled related and the 2 that were like veteran owned, they got funding for those. So I have not heard from First Homes if they've made up their mind kind of on what they, if they're gonna really pursue it or not, because they have to kind of figure out how to do the other 4. But, so I would expect some kind of project, so even if they end up just doing 4 that are funded, maybe leave the other 4 for future expansion or something like that, then I could see that happening. So, but yeah, I agree, 100%. 55 plus, you know, we've met with folks from the CARE group, you know, put them in contact with the basketball fella. It sounds like they're trying to work that out, where maybe he can use the gym there, or they can get, I know they've been asking for help with lighting and heating and things like that, so, because obviously that property would be prime property for some sort of redevelopment too. You know, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't, you know, force stuff with that, because it's expensive, very expensive project to do anything there. Yeah, but I'd love to see that one, something happen there, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, if something turns up on redeveloping the old school, I mean, I think that would be great. It's, the cost barrier on that is enormous. I do think, kind of going along with the idea of Main Street, brightening up Main Street, I think, I'm not sure if there's already plans for it, but I think updating the light poles on Main Street.
There was discussion there last year with the council. The cost came in pretty substantial.
And I
It's on
think
hold.
that at this time, they kind of decided to defer until we do a rebuild there.
Okay.
Because structurally speaking, the light poles are in really good shape.
Yep.
And there was, so we kind of went back and forth, because, initially I agree, I'd kind of wanted to replace them, because I'd like to go with something black that's a little bit, cleaner, because they are a little dated, but we talked about even just painting them. The issue with that is that, in reality, that paint's gonna fleck a lot worse than the original paint does. I mean, they were designed with the paint, so, you'd have to get them powder coated, so you'd have to take them down, and once you powder coat them, what kind of quality of that fiberglass and steel are you still gonna have? But yeah, no, I agree, that is one project that we'd like to do, but I think because we are gonna be resurfacing Main Street this year. We're gonna be doing a seal coat on Main Street and relining it. So I was kind of hoping to tie a few of those things together, like, hey, we'll get beautification, we'll get some of these facades off, we'll do some new lighting, but, I mean, we're looking at $200,000 or $300,000 for new lights, and it just seemed like, as long as they're functioning properly, it's difficult to
Yeah.
justify that in the
It was-
scope. I mean, there really isn't a way to fund it.
There was quite a discussion over it, and it just,
Yeah.
there wasn't in the books.
Yeah, the one, I guess one maybe small thing that we could possibly do, because we've still got, we were kind of on hold with some of the chamber had helped with buying some of those banners. But I've been told those are kind of on hold until we can get some way to properly affix them to the light poles. Because it sounds like the older ones, the bars that they're supposed to connect to, like a lot of them are either broken or unable to come on or off or whatever. So I don't know if there's like a way to just repair those or something.
It's not really, I mean, because they screw in, and it's, you get that material, and it's I don't want to say bitter, it's a
Fragile.
It's a frat, I mean, so
Brittle.
even brittle, that's what I'm trying to go for, yeah, of course, bitter, thinking chocolate probably. But, no, I mean, it's hard to get them, I don't know, I know Public Works has told me that in the past, so it's, at some point in time, we would like to get those replaced, and I agree that that'd be a project, I just don't know where the funding would come for that.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a good point.
And then along the same vein, I think, and again, I don't know if this has been discussed or not, but, again, kind of increasing the, what you might call like the, kind of the gateway features into Main Street. I envision like kind of where we redid we have like that little half wall thing by the municipal parking lot near the liquor store. Some kind of I don't know, things indicating, either Casson or Main Street or what have you. So, I don't know, some kind of,
Well-
again, kind of,
Part of all to do that is MinDOT, because Highway 57, we gotta have their sight line and their approval, so that's why as far as we got, was as far as we were allowed to do with that. I mean, 'cause we can only put so much
stuff there.
there, 'cause they, even if we wanted to put signs up, they gotta match MinDOT's regulations, and MinDOT says you can only have so many signs in their boulevards.
As long as, they don't seem to mind.
Unless it's
the
theirs.
Parking signs. And
That's theirs, but if it was,
They'll put up-
if it was to in a business or a city to put anything up, we're limited.
I know we had talked about, I mean, like, kind of like a gateway kind
Yeah.
of entrance kind of thing. And what would that look like, and trying to get, everyone on board to make it sure that they're comfortable with what it looks like it's problematic also. Because unfortunately, there isn't like one, I mean, you can talk to Chamber and say, hey, what do you think? And people go, oh, well, I like this, or I like this, or I like that.
And then you'd ask the council, and they'd like something else, and then...
Right. And
Right,
so, I mean,
yeah,
it's the same thing with the Christmas lights. It's difficult to get everybody, arranged on it, you know what I mean? So.
Oh, yeah, when you're adjacent to like MinDOT, it makes it a little tougher to do stuff too.
Yeah, I think it would depend on, again, like, where and what, because I agree, like, you can't just do any random
Yeah.
thing. I also don't know how limited we would be in some kind of like, like actual arch, right? Like, it'd have to be pretty high up there, but I don't know if there's something we could do on the, like, related to the little wall that we already have up. But anyway, that was just one thought. I don't know exactly what it would look like, but it seems like that would be, I think kind of one more thing we could potentially do if it's, again, if you work out the details.
Yeah,
Just in terms of the main, I basically I agree with you in that we, kind of continuing along that trend line of, kind of beautifying Main Street, I think especially as we continue to have more, it seems like we have pretty decent foot traffic, seasonally. And I think, kind of continuing to, play into that a little bit. Especially if we're gaining more people, I think kind of creating little, kind of small business districts within Casson that, kind of create a little bit of like hubs for things, are good. Main Street's out, is naturally one of those.
I mean, obviously there are a couple of, it's hard though to do everything all at once, because like I said, every year I've been here, we try to do something. Whether it's facade improvement, last year we spent a lot of money, the city spent $300,000 plus on a parking lot that is primarily used by the Legion, I mean, honestly. But we also allow, I mean, it's good for parking other businesses too. Obviously we want to support that, but.
Plus it cleaned up the area.
There are some impediments just to where businesses are. They're not necessarily placed where you'd want them to be placed, unfortunately, because they're there from historic, I mean, you've got the fitness center, which is, it's an interesting building, kind of a Quonset style building. It's offset, so it has kind of a weird angles in the parking lot, and it's, it's not the most efficient use of space. Like, if I could rotate that lengthwise, and I could say, hey, Old City Hall, it's gone, and then we could, you could do more projects there, but no, I agree. I mean, anytime we can make incremental improvements, we want to do that. That's fundable. So, John, you've got anything you've noticed in town here, you think?
On top of my head, no.
No.
I have to think about it a little bit more.
How about you, Dr. Elmo?
No, I liked where Tom was going. We have a cabin up north, so we travel through like a bazillion tiny towns, and those are the things that stick out to me, are like the archways, because they feel very hometown. I will say a lot of them have like murals that are really like beautiful, engaging as well, and so kind of highlight what our area is kind of known for. So that's kind of an interesting idea too.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And it's always interesting when you do travel and you go through downtowns and you see kind of, right, my folks live over in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and sometimes we go across through the middle of the state and you go through these towns of 1,700, and, they've got 4 supper clubs, 8 bars, and
That's
it's like,
Wisconsin.
how in the heck do they manage, and they have these nice little downtowns that are, that are busy and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look where the Welcome to Casson signs and Welcome to Byron signs, you see how far they're out? That's all related off of MnDOT.
Yeah.
It's been nice to have them closer to your city, but again, whenever you have the state involved, and it makes it a little harder to.
Yeah.
But we keep working. I know Brandon had talked to him when we were doing stuff down there, and the engineer, and he didn't get very far with it.
Yeah.
We got that much, which was more than we thought we were going to get.
Yeah. I know one thing that Ian's talked about, and I've talked with Councilmember Johnson about, is, do we expect to see businesses start to sort of transition in some of the residential zones? A good example would be like, we know that there's going to be a reconstructive First and Second Northwest. So those two up, basically from Main Street all the way up to the pool are in pretty, going north and south are in pretty rough shape. You've got a couple businesses where you're starting to get in that transition zone where in some towns you might see like, okay, like the houses along 57. You might see those become kind of business occupied, like a lawyer owns it and has an office and then maybe an apartment above or something like that. And is there a way to incentivize people to start looking at that? Because for us in town here, we're so pinned in with residential. Highway 57 is a good example. Like, and these are good people, so don't get me wrong, but there's probably 4 or 5 houses that really probably shouldn't be there. If you were looking at a very concrete commercial zone, you'd say, hey, look, when Casey's built, they had to eliminate some housing. When anybody would build, if, for example, if we wanted to get a bigger fast food restaurant and say Burger King said, hey, we're going to sell out, Chick-fil-A is going in or whatever, well, they'd have to tear down a house or something next door, or go to the, they're probably more likely than not they'd go to the east, because that might be a little bit easier business to, transition.
Yes.
But you get my point. Like, it's kind of like, there isn't a lot of commercial land right along the main corridors that we can develop.
Yeah, until you got somebody that knows they want to bring a business that can purchase those properties, that's the hard part.
Well, and those aren't low-cost homes.
No.
So even though they may not be in ideal residential locations anymore, I mean, for example, the house next to Casey's, that's sold in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
I mean, it went for more than I would have expected it to go for. It's a nice house, it's nicely, whatever, but it's just, the way home values have come up in Casson. I mean, you're not going to be able to purchase anything for under $300,000 along 57 now, hardly.
No.
They've all kind of come up too. So
It's
it's a good problem to have, but it's a it's kind of like, well, can't just say, oh, we just redevelop the whole thing, because it doesn't work that way.
And then, a little further north, you see they're fixing up some of them duplex.
Sure, I mean, that one on the east side of 57, that's blue now, it's got the
Yeah,
sign.
the green one, they-
That's been sitting there, that was sitting there for 5 years, and they
Yeah.
finally got it recited this year.
Yeah.
Which is great,
And
you know.
But then if you even go farther up by 7th, you got that red house.
Right, there's still.
They're still working on that.
You know, where they've recited, and, you know, new siding makes it look good.
It does.
You know, I mean, it's really a big thing when you can recite it, and they're nice little, neat little tight houses.
It makes it, yeah, it gives it appeal, and then people get interested in it.
Well, anyways, I know what Ian's looking for, is if you can think of something, you know, this is good conversation, if you can think of something specific, like, hey, we really think, you know, and you all have different connections, you all go different places, you know, and I'm always, you know, a food person, you know, so get me
Well-
to the restaurant, but I mean, you know, there are other businesses too, if there's a way to go after them, because you can
Well-
hire somebody to help, you know, solicit those and things like that, it's not cheap, but.
So this came up a few years ago too. Anybody that's in the RC zone, can you, instead of letting them, they can renovate their home but not change the footprint. So, you know, but there's nothing in the ordinances that says they can't right now. Is that something that, does the city look at, does you pick an area?
Take a look at ordinances, sure.
You know, and then say, yes, you can renovate, no, you can't expand the footprint. Because eventually, you don't want them to spend all this money,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, end up getting, not forced out, but bought out, and maybe not for, and, you know, maybe, you know, if that gives them incentive to move, and that opens that property up in that areas you're looking at.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems kinda like you're pushing them out, but I'm not trying to do that, I'm just saying,
Here's your options.
do we make it so they can't expand the footprint?
Yeah.
It's not, you know.
Well, I mean, I think that's definitely something you're looking at in the zoning code, and I'll bring that up again later, the zoning code, when we talk a bit more about the data center
Okay.
issue. But, anything else anybody has right now on this topic?
I had a gal
Sure.
ask me, she is looking to do, it's her and a couple other families, and I use the word co-op as far as schooling, but she did not like the word co-op, but essentially it's a bunch of families that want to get a space, and I think she thinks she has to go commercial, to start a school. And is that something that, like, they could go into a residential?
Well, I mean, I know my wife does a preschool playgroup, you know, with our children, and I know they go to one of the churches.
Right.
So, I mean, they go to the Methodist church in town here, which, I know, like, I think there's a big preschool co-op or playgroup over at CCC in
Yeah.
our area.
So I think they were kind of thinking along those lines,
Yeah.
but when they were looking at, I forget which church my kids do the Just for Kicks at, but it was quite expensive for them to be in there during the day.
Sure.
So they were, like, they actually have a realtor that they want to be in Casson, but they weren't having as much luck, because it was going to be like school-aged school, but they want to have an outdoor aspect of it too, and so that kind of limits the
Sure.
commercial of it all
I guess there's,
too.
you know, there are, yeah, it does limit it, you know, I mean, I guess, you know, wouldn't be a bad idea to talk to all the churches in town, you know, just because you might, I know we do have, one of the homeschool groups that uses the library. Obviously, it's nice for them because you have a park right there too, so that
Yeah.
is a benefit. I mean, there is, I don't know where that, it seems like that one location on Main Street that's kind of had a new business every year in it. You know, I don't know what the
Yeah.
square footage in there looks like. But
That's
that might
true.
be something that's viable, and you're only 2 blocks from the library then.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's one of the nice things, and you're not too far away from the pool. In the summer, I know, like, the childcare centers, you know, they walk up from Main Street up to 7th, and they do that, so, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, obviously, we know that, frankly, the biggest business in Casson is the education, it's the school district. So anytime we can incentivize more families and activities like that, it's a good thing. But, yeah, there isn't a lot of commercial space. You know, you know, and there's some available. I mean, you could build, you know, like, you know, folks over here, Mr. Marty's built this brand new, and, you know, your facility's kind of on the edge now too, but, so yeah, I mean, you could put up a pole-style building, and you could have a lot of space, but that is something that costs quite a bit too to start with, you know.
How many kids are they talking?
It sounded like it was starting with 3 families, but they were gonna kind of open it up to see who, because it was gonna be like a tuition-based school too, so it was going to have to, because they were gonna do all meals, and they were gonna be like organic and grown and all of that, so it was gonna be like a,
Charter school, right?
yeah.
I mean, I don't We have the old school building. I don't know, I mean.
So I know that's what I kinda said to her. I was like, this might be done, you know, but it's gonna be a couple years out. And I think they're still a year out from wanting to do it, but, you know, depending on financing and all of that, that was a thing too. Is the old TNC grooming, is that still open?
I don't really know, I think it is.
I think it's for rent.
I think I've seen a sign up, or at least before the snow it was up, well, this fall it was.
Yeah, it was up this fall.
And I don't know what it looks like inside there, like, I don't know if it's just a big open building, or, I know it has like a little front office.
Yeah,
But what's beyond that, I mean, that is a nice kind of a big open building,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, you know, anytime we can reuse what we already have, like you said, that kind of infield growth would be great.
Because you said opportunity service over here, is somebody's moving in?
Yeah, I mean, Subcax sounds like they maybe put an offer in on that, I don't know 100% there, but I mean,
They might have,
Our last, one of our last locations for, you know, dispensary.
but they could potentially have extra space there.
Yeah, they may.
true.
That's something they could reach out to
Okay.
SEMCAC, through the county, and just ask them. Because if they buy that property, because I know that SEMCAC is selling their lot, just north of here, that they got, because Rolling Hills bought it, and then SEMCAC bought it, now they're selling it again.
Okay,
And I think it's because they need the cash flow for that.
sure.
Oh, okay.
But then they would have maybe space they could rent out, because they wouldn't need that whole space.
Yeah,
You'd have to reach out to the county, and SEMCAC can ask, but
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and they would be outdoor space and not far from
Yeah.
the hardest part, you know.
You know, start somewhere.
Yeah, it's options.
Yeah,
Well, and you know, Ian's here, if they have
I
questions.
know.
They can certainly reach out to him, because
Yep.
he may know of something before I do, or, you know, but you know, he may be able to hook them up with something, I don't know. But yeah, trying to utilize that infield growth is something we've got to try and prioritize too, because all the infrastructure's already there then. You don't have to
Yeah.
worry about building, I mean, building a brand new building right now is super expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's very good.
Okay.
I guess one other
Oh, that's fine.
thought would be to just, if Ian would wanna maybe check in with like Darren Steffel to see if there's anything that can be done to help them with the movie theater, or if it's just kind of still in limbo with the insurance.
I haven't seen Darren around much.
I know the last time you asked him, he said he was taking care of it himself. But
Yeah, no, I'd love to see that get reopened, I mean, obviously,
Well-
that's 3.5 years now.
time he does get it reopened, I think people have given up. That's what I'm afraid of.
I don't know, I mean, I know there was a lot of insurance issues and lawsuits and things like that, hopefully, I mean, it
And
just
now-
seems like that takes forever.
But there is only one movie theater left in Rochester,
Right, well, I think if it was open, I mean, there's certainly gonna be use of it.
you know, and their rates have gone way up for,
There is one
I
other,
know one, but yeah, it's not very big.
what's that?
In Rochester, there's Pops Movie Theater, I think it's called.
Oh, downtown, the one,
Oh.
yeah,
so-
yeah, but then there's the IMAX on the south side,
Yeah,
that's pretty much it now.
Yeah.
And I was a kid, you know, you could go on the west side,
There was-
there's that one off of West Circle, but,
when I was a kid. There was one there at, North Broadway. Now it's just a grass field.
there is one other site in town I know that Ian and I have talked about, and I know Dan's been over there, it's the old concrete site.
Yeah.
Which, we do think that eventually that's gonna come back on the taxes probably in the next year or two. So I did ask Ian to look into some brownfield redevelopment grants, so at least we could maybe look at doing like a phase one, which is just identifying what are some of the issues there. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff on the site itself that is problematic, but,
Well, and you'd have to, hopefully they solve all the legal problems of who owns it.
yeah, I mean, I think at a certain point, when it reverts back to county on taxes, a lot of that stuff kinda just gets wiped out.
Okay.
because There's, you know, it is what it is. And then, you know, 5, 6 years down the line, this stuff doesn't have any value anyways, really, a lot of it doesn't, but,
Right.
I mean, that is a nice, you know, it's actually a 5-acre parcel, a lot of that would probably end up being wet, so we would end up probably losing about half of it, but you might end up having, you know, 2 or 3 acres there that would.
I'd say, yeah.
For some kind of project,
Which would, yeah, be a,
which would be nice.
Yes.
Because, yeah, I mean, I would, you know.
Cleans
I
the
looked
area
at
up.
it, even if you dug out that, even if you did some ponding on that south side of the main lot, right along the creek way.
Yes.
I think you do some ponding there, and then you can kind of build up that other area. I mean, like I said, kind of that urban, a little bit of urban renewal almost, because realistically, if that site was almost anywhere else in town, I think you would have heard about it a lot more.
a long time ago.
You know, it's kind of hidden a little bit with the post office next door and some quiet residential, but anywhere else in town, they would have been like, what are you doing? And so I'd love to see something, you know, it's like this old school and the concrete are the two that I'd like to do something with before I'm gone.
And we've been looking at that concrete place for years, you and I.
You and I walked out there back in 2021 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I know that that's one that just definitely has to be, something we want to keep an eye on. So anyway, I think that's all I've got for that. So let me know, email Ian or myself or both of us if you've got anything else that pops in your mind about priorities. He'll try and get something together for February.
Okay, next, city administrator's report.
Sure, and I just have a few things. I talked about that service territory acquisition, so we're excited about adding those folks on the south side to our customer base and be able to serve the whole town. Budget was approved. Minnesota's budget is kind of in flux, obviously, with Governor Walz's decision yesterday to not run for election. Hopefully, they'll be laser focused on, improvements to the state government this year. We did get some grants. We got about $1.3 million in solar grants for public buildings. So basically, all the city buildings next year will have solar installed. We had some mechanical issues with well 2. It won't affect anything overall. We should have that hopefully up and around again by the summer when we have a little bit more usage for the watering and things like that. And that's mostly all I've got for my update.
Okay. Data center discussion.
So as I mentioned earlier, we know this is something that's being talked about a lot more. We have people reaching out to us, and the EDA is the spot where obviously we would, you folks would hear about it sooner than later if we did have a proposal. I guess part of the question is, are we interested in something like this? What scale would we be interested in? Locations, you got the map there of development land. A lot of that is residential focused. There are some areas, especially on the south side, that might be viable for a location like that. We do see it as a possible business that has some advantages for a community like ours. Some people say, well, it doesn't generate a lot of jobs, and that's true. In Casson, there really isn't a huge unemployment rate to support a lot of new jobs. So if you could get something like with Egan, where they've got, 10 to 15 new jobs, potentially, and a nice tax base growth. From the utilities perspective, we do see it as a positive because it does have a good amount of electrical usage and water, potentially water, although I would argue in favor of a closed circuit system that would limit our water consumption, because I think that's usually one of the bigger issues that comes up with some of these communities, is people are concerned about water. There are systems that are able to be used for that with closed circuit. So anyway, I think we just wanted to kind of run it past you and see if there's any feedback anybody has.
Is this map a little out of date?
What's that?
This map a little out of date, J there? That's not Goodrich Fellows anymore.
It still technically says that on the county's website, even though it has been purchased by Mr. Schrader.
Okay.
So I don't know when they're going to rename it or what they're going to call it.
Okay.
We do know that has transacted.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say this is generally up to date.
Okay.
Although you're right, that may not have the right owner on it necessarily.
Well, if you're doing a data center, even way out there at L,
Sure.
that'd be a good spot. Golden Kernel Farms.
Yeah.
It's within, it's along the highway, it's within, and you're not taking up a lot of viable space with some of that wetland out there too.
No, that's a good point.
Would be a nice, and, yeah, I know there's a lot of discussion about data centers and in most data centers, when they come to town, they're looking for two things: land and the ability to be here. They're not looking for the city to pay them to come here. Then they don't use any more water or electricity than a housing development in the same footprint. That people.
Well, I will say, sometimes they do a lot more electricity. I know that. We've had a couple people talk to us, and, currently the city's maximum load, if we add the People's folks on, will be about 13 megawatts. That'll be our peak load in the summer. So on a warm day in the summer, we have people running air conditioning. And so a lot of the, even smaller data centers, you'd see a 10 megawatt load.
But they,
So it might be double the size of Casson, basically. In
but
terms
some of them are looking at putting in their own solar systems.
That's true.
On
No
these
doubt
panels.
about that, yeah.
And if you can put those on, if they can get subsidies from the state, 'cause
I'm not as concerned about the power itself. The city of Casson's position is we have a long position power-wise. So we actually have more power under our contract than we do actually utilization. So I mean, that in of itself, and a lot of people are worried about that. The issue isn't so much the power supply. You read about, and the people are like, oh, my power bill's going up. It's because of the data centers. Well, the issue is kind of twofold. You've got the capacity, because what does that data center need? It needs firm power. Like, it doesn't necessarily need wind or solar, it needs something that's gonna be churning along, you know, and whatever we've been closing over the last 10 years, a lot of the coal, natural gas, nuclear plants have been closed, and that provides that basic, I mean, some of these days, like a good example, yesterday or even today, I guarantee you, if I go and look at the solar generation, it's gonna be pretty low.
Oh, yeah.
So, now, it's great out in Nevada, Arizona, I mean, and I'm not saying it's bad here, but a day like today, you know, and I don't think there's probably a ton of wind today either, I haven't
No.
been outside since early this morning, but production today is low. Good thing is, we're also not doing a ton of heating, electrical heating today, because it's not super cold. So, I mean, you're seeing a lower demand, but you're also seeing a much lower production.
You
So, I mean, at night, when the lights go off, I mean, you still have to be able to run those, you know, centers, and I think the issue is capacity. You have to be able to hit that peak time, you have to be able to always serve that peak time, even though normally it's only down here. You know, and that's where it kinda gets expensive, but,
Well, and believe it or not, a lot of the wind, those turbines need minimal wind compared to what most people think. If it's too windy, they have to actually shut them down.
sure, there is a lot of curtailment, which, to be honest with you, like, because of that curtailment, co-locating facilities, like in western Minnesota, makes a lot of sense. If you're curtailing because you've got a ton of wind turbines out in southwest Minnesota, Worthington, whatever, and there's, right now, you know, let's say it's blowing so hard that they're not paying, right, because the power is basically, you know, zero net.
Right.
They're shutting them off. Well, it would make sense, right, to put the facility there.
Yes.
But of course, a lot of times where they want the facility is they want it in a spot like Pine Island, Casson, Kent Falls,
Yes.
because that's closer to a metro area, you know?
What about, I mean, do you think there would be a chance that if we ended up with the concrete plant, that they would be willing to basically rehab it into a buildable site?
You know, if that's a location that would work, I mean, my concern with that is that too close to residential? Is that too close to, I mean,
Yeah.
realistically, what you're looking at is you're looking at a big box building. Now, it
And
might
it's
be
tall.
concrete slab walls, it might be metal, whatever, and not a bad spot, right? 'Cause
But it's too close to residents.
But I
in
don't
my
know if
mind.
that is,
Clearly
to me,
there's
like,
no
a better
power
location
flow.
might be on one of the fringes of town.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the one that they're looking at building in Pine Island is 60 feet tall.
Sure.
So, do the figure.
That's 200 megawatts, and I will say.
Yeah, that's
I'm
200
not
megawatts. It's 300,000 square foot building.
Myself, because I think it just
No.
has a whole lot of issues.
But just look at the footprint, if it's a 300,000 square foot building that was 60-foot sidewalls,
Yeah, but
you'd have to completely change your ordinances to take a building that tall, 'cause,
we're talking about a different scale of data center though, aren't we?
yeah, but
I would say that.
they're still gonna be tall.
We probably want small, on a closed circuit, I would agree with that. What I'm just thinking is the cost of, like, on one hand, you know, like, I agree, like, there's obviously neighbors there. I mean, side acres, there's a little bit of space depending on the wetlands, but, I do think right now, clearly, like, the bar of what people are willing to tolerate there is pretty, I mean, it's a pretty low bar, it's like what's already there. The cost of rehabbing that site is going to be significant. If we can bring in a party that's, you know, where that's not as much of a concern, and, you know, I mean, I agree, it'll be a big box. The big box might be better than the mess that's there already.
Oh, well, I think
that's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Depending on how much noise it generates, right?
Yeah,
That's an issue.
yeah, that's
too,
a
how much
question.
noise is generated.
Right, we don't know, I'd say that we don't know until we know more about what data center we're talking about.
Sure.
But I would say that would be worth a look, just because it would be nice to kill two birds with one stone.
You know, and funding doesn't seem to be an issue for a lot of these folks. I mean, you know, whether it's a Meta or it's a Bitcoin or whatever, I mean, you know, I've seen, you know, the Kenneth Falls presentation, that I watched part of it, like I said, I'm going down to that training down in Austin. I mean, that company they're working with there, it's pretty much whatever you do ask for, they're gonna work with you, as long as they can find, to your point, someone who's willing to work with them on it.
Yes.
And they were fortunate there because the land that they bought there already had a farm well that was rated for 41 million gallons a year. And they know that even at their full build-out, they only needed 43 million gallons, and they don't think they're gonna need that much. So in reality, there was a little bit less opposition there, because they already had the water was either gonna be used for a farm or it was gonna be used for this, so it wasn't
And-
taking away from any system.
And most of those sites are looking for close proximity to the power that's there, for minimal infrastructure to connect.
Right.
And that's henceforth the one in Pine Island. they got the big utility lines right across the road. So then, it's there, they'll have, they know they've got it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I guess I would say, again, I would say if it's small, like small in the context of a data center, probably on the closed loop water, I don't know if we have the surplus water necessarily to handle it, but I think the power, it sounds like is a better deal.
Yeah, I mean, I asked about that, I've asked our utilities, or water department, and, you know, what does that look like, right? You know, so right now we have, I don't know, 750,000 gallons in the towers. So, you know, they're not as concerned about, like, a 500,000 a day user would probably not be an issue, you know? So, I mean, but you could do that once. And, you know, my biggest concern is always, and this is why, to Dan's point, you would have to work in infrastructure, because if I did need to put up another tower, or if I did need to do another well, because we also have residential growth, and obviously, our first concern is always gonna be for our residents. You know, whether we get a data center or not, it's great, but we wanna make sure they have water that doesn't cost them more than it should, based on, you know, what's there. So no, that's a good point. I mean, I guess I've looked at it, you know, 10 to 20 megawatts is something I would say we would, if we were gonna dip our toe in it. You know, that's a small facility. If you get over to Rochester, kind of off of the east side of West Circle, as you go, I think it's kind of, you got Hy-Vee down here, and then kind of northeast of there before you get to Walmart. There's offset off the road, Mayo's got a data center there. And, you know, you can just drive up to it and get out of the car, and, I mean, it's not super loud, so that's one thing that's an issue. It's also not huge. I don't know how many megawatts it is myself. But, you know, I mean, you're talking about, you know, I think one of the ones that Ian talks about here is some of these lots right here by City Hall. You know, if you could get a 10 megawatt that went on 5 acres, and you could say, hey, they're gonna buy these 2 lots right here, you know, there isn't any residential right next to it at least, right? I mean, you might have residential over there, but it's gonna be limited, you know. You already have some highway noise here. There's a road here that was built to, the road to nowhere, the infrastructure to nowhere. That might be a good, ideal spot, you know, and realistically, what the Clockies are asking for, it might be a lot for a normal business, but for a business like that, it's not gonna be hugely substantive, you know. So, anyway.
Doesn't hurt to look.
Right. I guess I'm just, you know, do you think this is something we should talk to people about, you know? Because if we don't do it, Byron will do it, Stewartville will definitely do it.
Well,
They've,
I'd say we do it, but then I'd say get more info, make sure we have the selling points if it does work, you know?
well, and one thing, like I said, I'm gonna go to this train next week, and, you know, whatever presentation I get, I'll forward out to you.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think it's good information for you to have, because you know, we hear about stuff in the news, and you can read the articles, but that's also like secondhand. That's the reporter writing it up. They've got their own positive or negative bias that they're putting into an article. They may like it, they may think it's terrible, one of the two.
Yep.
It's not something that's going away. Every time I turn my phone on and I talk into it and say, hey, you know,
That's all data center.
It is.
You know, and people forget that sometimes, that all that has to be stored somewhere. And
I think you just have to be prepared to say what the benefits are and already have the answers to what people are gonna come up with the cons.
Yep.
Right, and more information out there. You're gonna have a lot of people with opinions, but if you can put the information out there before.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, you know, talking to John Rademacher, who's the city administrator in Cannon Falls, I mean, they were able to get theirs, and there were some objections to it,
Sure.
but less than most communities. And part of it is, you know, full transparency. Like, hey, you know, here's what we're looking at. We're not gonna call it a magic business farm or whatever. It's potentially a data center. You know, because sometimes that's like Pine Island's gotten into trouble because they've called it a energy park or any of the other names that
Yeah.
may not
Well,
be.
yeah, man,
I mean, I'm not saying it isn't an energy park, but it's
They
not
bought-
necessarily the most accurate name for it.
they bought 400 acres and they need 40 for the facility.
Right.
Right. So there's questions about that too, right? Whereas I think you're right, if you said, okay, here's the footprint, here's the noise level, it's, you know, I really think a closed loop system of some kind, whether it's air cooling, water cooling, you know, coolant cooling, whatever.
Because they've got the
They have the capability to
free,
do
they
it.
get free cooling in the winter.
Yeah.
Or, not
I feel like
free, but minimal.
It was a popular spot for a lot of these folks because of that, so.
Because, I mean, we use our fair share of water at work, where I work.
Sure.
We average, surprisingly, I would thought it'd been more, but it's about 11,000 gallons a month.
I mean, I just look at, I mean, one thing I kind of think in my own mind and imagine is like, okay, the ice arena. You know, we've all been past there. I mean, that has
That's
a cooling
noise.
system. That's a big barn. That's basically, that could be what that looks like.
Mhm.
It could be a building a lot like that, maybe not quite as tall, because I don't know if they would need to be as tall, but, you know, that could fit in certain areas pretty well, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal, so. Okay,
All right.
well, that's all I've got.
Perfect. We're running out of time anyway, so. 2025, 2027 EDA work plan, priorities for '26.
Yeah, and we talked about a lot of that, so I mean, you kind of got that work plan in your packet.
Yep.
If you have other things, we've talked about Main Street, we've talked about some beautification, we talked about data centers a little bit.
We got it.
That's, I mean, I've kind of got some marching orders on facade improvement, we'll see where that goes. And then we'll be taking a look at those ordinances.
Yeah.
Partly for the RC stuff that we talked about today, and then partly for, if there was some project like this, data center, then we would have to have that in the code. Right now, it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to add that into it. I will see if Ian can reach out to Darren Stuffel, and then, I think I'm gonna go and try and tour the old school one of these days with Kathy. I'm hesitant just because I don't know how much mold is gonna be in there, but I'll see if I can dig up one of those old masks from a couple
If,
of years ago or something.
if you make it more in, later in the afternoon, maybe I can try to come too.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to see what the, it's been 5 years since I've been.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
See where it's at, and, because obviously that's another infill development, that if something could be done there, it'd be great to see it happen, so.
Yeah.
You talked to Kara recently about that?
Talked to, Jerry Bird, or not Jerry,
Easy.
yeah, I think Easy, maybe a month ago, before Christmas.
Okay.
He came in with his, they have their architectural firm that they hired that's doing
Yep.
some roof work.
Yep.
They've got some grants for some of that, and, you know, I kind of told him, I said, you know, obviously, apartments is the cleanest project, because we know how that would work. Because, I mean, the EDA and the council in the past have said, hey, we'll give you tax support through a TIF for that. Now, they have a pretty good-sized gap between what they think per unit would cost and what they can actually do. And part of that is because of the historic designation. Because they're like, well, you don't let that stop you. Well, I got you. But at the same time, like, if I have to make sure these terracotta tile are from the 1950s, you know, pre-nuclear bomb quality.
Because a lot of businesses have looked at it and
Right.
tried to.
There have been a lot of big firms, small firms, and they've all kind
But
of,
it all comes down to the price,
yeah.
where it's double, probably, is what I thought they
I would
said.
say that, I mean, at this point, it seemed like they may be open to getting the property off their hands. Like, because I do think that they don't have a lot of bandwidth left. I mean, a lot of those folks are retired, or they're out of state, or they've passed on.
Yeah, I just brought it up just because they stopped in Camp Elcon not too long ago, I think it's been a few months now, but they were looking to hire some third party to come kind of see what kind of business would fit there, and I never heard an update on that.
Yeah, I mean, I told her, I said, you know, what you've got is you've got 3 wings, right? Because you've got the basketball court in one part, up on the second floor, you've got that kind of cafeteria below, and you've got 2 education wings. You know, the way I imagine it, and I know I talked to Councilmember Ferris, when she was originally part of a group that was looking at that, they were looking at like a community center.
Yeah, that's what they brought up for me.
And I, you know, so I said, apartments, that's the cleanest. If you had all the money and that was all done, yes, put the apartments in, make it 55 plus or something like that, active living. They can have pickleball courts, and because there's space there for more stuff on the site. You know, they've got that. But if that doesn't work, then I think you need to get creative, and the way to get creative is to be able to gut it without having too many issues internally. Like, you keep the facade nice, but you don't try to put all the units in. Because by putting the units in, you need water, plumbing. I mean, if you could just say, hey, you have a big box on each end, and, you know, we'll put a pickleball barn on one side, and we'll put indoor swimming pool, once again, pipe dream of mine, on the other side. So Dan will be swimming there every day, be good for him. And then in the middle, you can have this basketball court, and you could have a senior center or something, whatever. Those would be great. And you might be able to get a business to do that. I mean, I don't know if you've been over in Mankato, the old Chopco in Mankato, a couple bought it, and they just gutted the entire inside of it and made it into pickleball. It's called the pickle bar. So they, you know, and I'm like, you know, Tom, I need to get a loan from you, because there's that, on the south side of Rochester, they've got the at-home building or whatever, one of the big box stores that went out, and I was like, why is Rochester spending $65 million on an indoor, you know, their indoor facility is right there. Just take that out, gut it, put a pool in. I mean, you've already got the building, you just have to be creative about it. And so, I mean, I think there's ways they could do it. I wish they had done it 20 years ago, because now the costs are, instead of $4 million or $5 million, now you're looking at $20 million. And how do you make a community center work long-term? And there's lots of hoops you'd have to jump through. In my perfect world, though, that's what I would do. And I would get Manorville and Byron and some of these other cities to say, hey, we want an indoor facility.
On that building being that old, you have potential for hazardous mediation inside, you know.
I mean, any kind of building could have asbestos.
I know, but-
That's not something worried about, that has to be part of your pro forma.
No, but I mean, that,
You have to figure it in.
and maybe that slows some of the people down too, is,
It does. No, I mean, I guess I look at like the downtown, where the old DCI was. I mean, if you've been in that building, I mean,
Mhm.
they did a good job, they cleaned it out, and it's got.
oh, no, I'm not saying it can't be done, I just,
Stuff inside
it just
that.
adds more expense.
There's always something, right?
I think they've got a certificate from the state that they've sufficiently abated the asbestos in there or something already.
Sure.
But I don't know, whatever.
I don't know.
They-
It's just,
It's still, instead of 20 million, it'd be 19.8 million.
Yeah.
right?
yeah. Yeah, it's expensive. All right,
I'll motion to adjourn.
oh, we got any items for February?
Not right now, but we'll try and see if we can get our new member to come next month, I don't know.
Yeah, have them reach out to him again
I'll
and
have you
see.
reach out to him and remind him what time
Maybe,
it is and stuff.
because I know we mentioned to Ian to notify him, so just.
Yeah, no, he emailed everyone's email, so I mean, everybody got the
Okay.
packet,
Got it.
and then,
Yeah.
and then, I'll reach out to Councilmember Johnson and see.
Yeah.
I'll let you know next week at council if he's interested in taking Brian's spot then as the council liaison.
All right.
We'll see if the chamber comes up with anybody or not, so.
Yeah, I talked to a prospect that's gonna run for the board, that would be, that I mentioned to him, I said, I think we need an EDA person, and he was like, oh, I'd really like that, actually, so.
Awesome, well, that's great. We'd love to have another member, so.
All right. Tom gave us a motion to adjourn, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.